I'm going to try to survive 100 days in Create Mod Minecraft. Not only do I just want to survive, but I also want to thrive by transforming a lush cave into a Minecraft engineer's paradise. If you enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing. I started off strong on day 1 by spawning into a taiga biome, completely surrounded by ice and snow, and devoid of pretty much any and all joy. Regardless, time was of the essence, so I did what thousands of Minecrafters before me have done and gathered some wood and stone and made some basic tools. I lucked out and managed to find sheep right away. Clearly, these sheep were taking pity on me, knowing I had never played hardcore before and didn't want me to have to be up all night fighting for my life, or more realistically, just dying. I made sure to pay back their kindness by killing them and sleeping in their skin. As the sun rose on day 2, I decided I would explore the new 1.18 caves for mining and ran around trying to find something slightly better than just a small divot in the ground with some coal in it. I stumbled across a ruined portal and got 2 different gold pickaxes, and one even had silk touch. I would definitely make use of this in the future and not just hold on to it and throw it away sometime down the road. Eventually, I found a suitable cave and had to take on my first mobs, but managed to dispatch them with ease. After some initial mining, I was able to gear myself up with iron and was ready to explore. On day 3, I entered the cave and started descending into it with high hopes of all the shiny resources I'd be able to fill my inventory with. Surprisingly, I found very little iron while caving, but did manage to actually stumble across some diamonds. This just further bolstered my already high hopes of bountiful resources, making them even higher. This would be perfect for when reality came along and would eventually shove my high hopes off an even higher cliff. I finished off the day down in the caves after finding an abandoned mineshaft. Day 4 was dedicated to clearing out the abandoned mineshaft as best I could. I found multiple chests which contained golden apples, name tags, and even melon seeds. I would definitely use all of these things at some point in the future. I found diamonds lining the walls of the mineshaft and even came across a mob spawner. Thankfully, the mob spawner saw me as so bad at Minecraft that I wasn't even considered a threat, and it didn't even spawn any mobs. Little did it know that even a bad Minecraft player can place a couple torches and disable it. While exploring, I also came across 2 different cave spider spawners, but decided to leave them be. By the end of the day, I had nearly 20 diamonds to my name. Day 4 rolled into day 5 as I continued clearing the abandoned mineshaft and tried my best to trace back my steps to get to the surface. I made sure to grab plenty of andesite before I left the cave because we were playing with Create after all, and everyone that knows Create minus andesite equals pain. That is the math lesson for the day. I managed to make it out of the cave and realized I had left my bed at the surface because it blended in so well with the snow. Now that I had an inventory full of loot, day 6 would mark the start of my search for a lush cave so I could find a proper place to actually set up shop. As much as I enjoyed being a hobo, I felt like I'd never be able to properly train hop like one due to my bad knee injury, so I'd be much better as just a hermit living in a cave somewhere underground. I used my extremely poor vision to scan around for an azalea tree, marking that there was some form of lush cave underground. Day 7 continued the search for the mysterious and quite possibly fake azalea tree, but almost immediately my fears were laid to rest as I stumbled across the beautiful, magnificent, perfect, and majestic azalea tree sitting in front of me. My search was finally over, assuming the cave below it wasn't total garbage. I figured I should go explore the cave behind the tree just in case it led down to the lush cave system, but that ended up being a total bust. I took a new approach on day 8 and 9 and just dug straight down right below the azalea tree, past the rooted dirt, to try to break into whatever lush cave was going to be below it. Eventually, I broke into the lush cave and spent a while exploring, still hoping to find an enormous open cavern perfect for building. Sadly, all I came across were valuable resources, but no large cavern. I was devastated and quite honestly may never trust a stupid azalea tree ever again. Just before giving up hope though, I noticed a large cavern on my mini-map nearby. I was set on making it to the large cave, so on day 10 I dug straight towards it and found an amazing lush cave. It was everything I had been looking for. Sadly, the cave had tons of mobs in it that needed to be dealt with. Even though I had hit double-digit days, I still wasn't ready to die, so I very slowly cleared out the mobs and lit up the cave throughout days 10 and 11. After clearly underestimating the amount of wood that I would need, I had to head back to the surface on day 12 so I could make more torches. After starting my journey to the surface, my pickaxe broke and I had a minor panic attack. I was trapped in a cave with no way out and way too many mobs. What could go wrong? Thankfully, my big brain Minecraft pro strategy of killing skeletons to get bone meal and then grow an azalea tree from a bush worked perfectly. I truly was amazing. Over the next 2 days, I set up base in a safe corner of the cave and made myself a diamond pickaxe and what gear I could manage. I laid my iron gear to rest in a chest. It had served me well, but was a completely worthless piece of crap now that I wanted nothing to do with. I finished making my tunnel to the surface, only to find out I tunneled into a frozen river, but rather than mine straight to avoid the river, then come up, I spent the rest of the day clearing a path up in the water because I have Minecraft OCD and couldn't manage anything else. I started out day 15 gathering wood so I could start building and continue lighting up the cave. I went back down and set up a basic storage area and tried my best to make it look nice. I also decided to include an area for furnaces, a crafting table, and even a stone cutter. It only took 15 days, but I finally had a little corner of the world just for myself to call home. Now that I had the basics taken care of, day 16 marked the true start of my create journey. I set up a mechanical press and powered it with 2 water wheels so that I could start making metal sheets that were going to be needed for pretty much all future crafts. And yes, I made sure to put a depot under the press so that I wasn't throwing my items on the ground to be pressed like some peasant. Now that I had the ability to make metal sheets, I also set up a mechanical mixer, placed it over a basin, and powered it with the same water wheels I had just used. Once all the machines were down, I made sure the area still looked nice because any man can make a press and a mixer, but a true artist makes it look beautiful too. After all that hard engineering work, I spent the next few days lighting up the cave more and fighting off mobs so that I could make my way down to the lava lake below and eventually collect some obsidian. While making my way around the cave, I also started to collect some of the ores showing on the walls, but decided to leave most of it eventually because I liked how it looked. I was indeed a total Chad, flexing my wealth and leaving visible ores just as decorations. As the day ticked over to day 21, it was time for me to put my diamond pickaxe to good use and finally get some obsidian. I was absolutely terrified I would get shot by a skeleton while going down to the lava, but I told myself real men aren't afraid of a quick lava bath and just kept on going. And no, that wasn't my screen shaking because my hand was shaking. No, don't get confused. There's clearly just a minor earthquake going on where you live right now. I managed to get the obsidian without issue and assembled the portal to go to the nether. I realized I forgot to make a fresh shield though, so I went and did that, then went inside. Once inside, I realized I also forgot to put on the gold I had made, so I quickly did that to appease the nether overlords. Going for the trifecta of forgetfulness, I also realized I forgot to make a blaze burner, so I had to go out and do that too, because that was the whole reason we were even going into the nether. My only goal in the nether was to find the nether fortress and capture a blaze, and somehow it took me 4 days to just do that. Starting out on day 22, I began my trek through the nether, wandering around hoping the minimap would help me find a fortress. Eventually, I decided to just sacrifice my pickaxe durability and mine through the walls of the nether to avoid any and all mobs that might pose a threat to me. I made sure to gather soul sand when I came across it to use for bubble columns behind my water wheels to increase their speed and stress capacity. Eventually, I came across a nether fortress and had to meander around for a while inside it before I found a single blaze to capture. I also managed to expertly avoid a wither skeleton that was guarding a chest full of amazing loot. Day 25 ended with me booking it as fast as I could out of the lava death trap known as the nether back to my little safe haven. Now that I had a full blaze burner, I placed it down below the basin and made sure it was accessible so I could fuel it to actually heat the basin. I put zinc and copper in the basin, heated the blaze burner, and with that, day 26 officially marked me entering the brass age. Now that the upper area was done, I needed to further expand into the cave and took days 27 and 28 to make a very fancy curved staircase down to the lower level. I was set on making the staircase absolutely perfect, and before I knew it, 2 whole days had passed with me simply having placed down and mined back up essentially the same 10 blocks in different spots the entire time. I quickly finished off the stairs and cleared out an area for our mechanical crafters right at the base of them. With the area cleared out, I started day 29 by crafting 21 mechanical crafters so I could be able to make the crushing wheels. I made 2 water wheels to power the crafters, but apparently underestimated the power requirements and had to go make an additional water wheel to not overstress the system. I then made 2 sets of crushing wheels because the only thing better than 2 crushing wheels is 2 sets of 2 crushing wheels, and because I also wanted to make an iron generator that was going to need all 4. Now that I had crushing wheels, the hard part of the setup was ready to go. Sadly, the easy part involved belts, and those needed kelp, and so day 30 marked the start of my 5-day journey to find kelp in the barren wasteland that surrounded my lush cave. With snow biomes and frozen rivers in every direction, I ended up having to travel 2,000 blocks to find the kelp that I needed to make my belts. On the way home, I was so annoyed at how long this took, I slaughtered every animal I came across, and by the end of day 34, I had made it home with plenty of kelp and way too much meat. The copious amount of cows I massacred on my way home from the kelp trip made me want to stall setting up the iron generator and instead make an enchanting setup first, so I went on a mining trip to find the last remaining diamond that I would need to be able to craft the enchanting table. It took forever to find, but I did manage to light up a lot more of the cave, gather a ton of iron and gold, which I was running low on, and eventually I found 2 diamonds before heading back at the end of the day. While I waited for my sugarcane to grow, I cleared out the area where I would place down my enchanting setup. Piece by piece, I assembled my enchanting setup, constantly looking over my shoulder to see if the stupid sugarcane behind me had finally grown so I could make more of the books that I needed. Eventually, I tore down most of my sugarcane since the iron generator would be going there anyway, and I finished crafting the last of the bookshelves. I enchanted my pickaxe and wasn't actually upset to see that I got Unbreaking 3 and Efficiency 4. I had really hoped for a Fortune or Silk Touch pickaxe, but instead I just got an all-around solid pickaxe and wasn't about to complain about that. On day 38, I went mining again to test out my new, fancy, ultra shiny diamond pickaxe, but instead of going for ores, I actually went to get deep slate and andesite for building more in the area. I was quickly burning through both of these resources as I tried to terraform every area I worked on and crafted the extremely andesite hungry create machines, so I figured having a stockpile of both definitely wasn't going to hurt. After getting all the resources I would need to make the area look nice, I used day 39 to clear out the area for the iron generator and tried my best to clean up the ground so it nicely would transition from deep slate by the crafters to the andesite by the soon-to-be iron generator. In yet another day of resource gathering, I went to the surface to spend day 40 gathering wood and mining for coal. I wasn't used to the 1.18 ore generation, and finding no coal down in the caves meant I had little to no fuel outside of smelting down all the wood. It seemed like a kelp farm would be needed ASAP to get a solid fuel source, so I made a note of that for after I finished the iron generator. The trial and error process for setting up the iron generator started on day 41. I figured it would be best to work backwards and just try to map out where everything would need to go, making sure to leave ample room for the belt system for washing the gravel down into flint and iron. I wanted to make a larger iron generator than was really needed because it would most likely be one of the larger builds in the cave for now and should really tie the entire area together. Size might not be everything, but when it comes to generating iron, more is always better, right? I had to reposition the crushing wheels multiple times to get it right, and eventually finished off day 44 by filling the water and lava into the cobblestone generator to get the first set of cobblestone made. Now that I had the skeleton of the iron generator made, I had to polish it off, so on day 45 I started setting up the gravel washing area and put down 8 water wheels to power the entire system. I spent the entire day connecting, disconnecting, and reconnecting the rotational power to get the cobblestone generator and belts running in the proper direction and at the proper speed. Turns out the drill's running at half speed to the belts is just right to make sure it doesn't overflow. Who would have guessed? I spent days 51 and 52 connecting the rest of the rotational power to the crushing wheels, lower belts, and the encased fans to wash the gravel. I had to make sure the gravel stayed in the path of the blowing water just long enough to get washed, but not too long to back up the entire system. Turns out 1/2 speed for the lower belts worked perfectly too. It had now been over 10 days since I started working on the system, so I wanted to finish it off as soon as I could. Now that the system was able to produce flint and iron nuggets, it was time to finish things up so it only stored iron ingots. I collected lava and made a smart chute so I could dump the flint into the trash instead of actually storing it. I placed a basin with a mechanical press over it to make iron ingots and a chute under it to dump the flint, but saw the backup was a problem earlier on with the flint, so I ended up moving the chute earlier on in the belt system to ditch the flint the second it was made. I ended up extending the belt system to go into a chest, and with that the system was done, and it was completed in record time too. Since I had decided to try and make the area look nice and blend everything in with the lush cave around it, I decided to use days 55 and 57 to decorate the area around the iron generator. I tried to incorporate as much green as I could and put some glow berries in here and there for a splash of color. I realized I would need a lot more deep slate if I wanted to finish off the back of the cobblestone generating area, so that would have to be a project for another day. While working, I noticed an issue with the gravel overflow infrequently happening and had to speed up the last belt to prevent multiple nuggets from clogging up the system when they ran into each other. I'd say suffering from success isn't really that bad of a problem, but man was I annoyed when those stupid pieces of gravel were not going onto the belt. After my realization that it would take stacks and stacks of building material to make the back of the cobblestone generator look nice, I set off on yet another mining trip from days 58 to 62 with the goal of yet again getting as much andesite and deep slate as I could. I dug into a nearby lush cave and started clearing out all the andesite I could get my greedy little hermit hands on. I got multiple stacks but ended up getting carried away caving in the end in hopes of finding more diamonds. By the end of day 62, I had cleared many caves, found many resources, but had not found a single diamond anywhere. I really suck at finding diamonds. As always, my andesite and deep slate resource gathering trips inspired me to also gather more wood and finally get some sand on the surface. Before heading up, I remembered I should enchant my shovel, but only managed to get Unbreaking 3. It was better than nothing, but having no efficiency on it really made me shed a manly tear of manliness. I went to the surface and collected as much sand and wood as I could. I had to return back to the cave at the end of day 64 as my axe had just broken and I was not about to punch trees to gather my wood on day 64. I planned on using day 65 to make a kelp farm because I was very low on fuel and had become quite annoyed at the amount of wood I was having to gather to subsidize both my wood crafting and my fuel needs. I started out by clearing out the area next to the iron generator for the kelp farm to go, and then placed down a mix of deep slate and moss blocks to blend it in with the current builds. On day 66, I started to make the create machines required for the kelp farm, but realized pretty quickly I would need a slime ball to actually hold the entire contraption together. I got lucky that I spawned in a spruce biome, so I ran to the surface to grab some ferns, and then made a millstone so that I could crush them into green dye. I also used the same millstone to make wheat into wheat flour, and then turned that into dough. With green dye, I could make lime dye, and with that in the dough, I was able to craft a slime ball instead of having to go out of my way to find a slime so that I could get some. I used days 67 and 68 to set up the mechanical components of the radial kelp farm and place down sand along the bottom of the entire circle for the kelp to grow on. I figured sand would look nice as it was a new color for the area, and I made sure to surround most of the kelp farm in glass so I'd be able to see both the sand, its color, and the moving farm. I felt like the animations of the farm itself and the kelp would further help bring the area to life, as if a lush cave doesn't look alive enough already. After setting up the basic components of the kelp farm, I remembered I would need rotational power to actually move the kelp farm itself before I could properly fill in the area with water and plant all the kelp I wanted, because the farm blocks themselves were going to be blocking some of the space I had to put those down in, unless they were actually moving. I decided days 69 to 71 would be good to use for setting up a large windmill that would be able to power the entire kelp farm and really any future builds that were going to go in this area. Windmills are great at generating a lot of stress capacity, with the downside of running at a very low speed, but that wasn't an issue for me. While setting up the windmill, I actually ran into a slime. I was at a loss for words since I had been here for nearly 70 days and not seen a single slime. But apparently, the minute I go out of my way to craft a slime ball and waste days on that, one spawns directly in front of me, ready to make me hate myself. With the windmills set up and running, I started out day 72 by connecting the rotational power to the kelp farm and noticed it was spinning in the wrong direction. Since direction is critical for the harvesters to work, I disconnected it and flipped them around so they would properly spin and actually collect the kelp that they were rolling over. I then filled the kelp farm with water and actual kelp since the contraption was no longer blocking the way. Once I verified the farm was in fact working, I built up the edges around it, but left the top open as a design choice, mainly because I couldn't actually decide on how to make the roof look nice. Now that the kelp farm itself was done, I had to find something to do with the kelp and decided on simply making it into dried kelp blocks as one of the best fuel sources available in all of Minecraft. I initially planned on using a depot to smoke the kelp, but settled on using a belt with a fan blowing a campfire across it. I had the kelp going into a basin with a press over it to make the dried kelp blocks and then a chest on the other side of it to actually store them in. The kelp farm was done, but was looking a little bit gross and out of place, so I used days 78 and 79 to decorate the area around the kelp farm and the entire dried kelp block making area as well. I used covers on some of the cogwheels and celebrated the new Create 1.18 feature that allowed me to do that. While working on the area, I tried to change the elevation a bit to make it look slightly more natural, and then lit up the area with torches again because at some point I had broken a lot of them and I was not about to die to a surprise creeper spawn over 3/4 of the way through this entire journey. On day 80, I got annoyed at the idea of having to go back to the surface for sand, so I decided to make a sand generator right down in the cave with me. I made 2 more sets of crushing wheels, one for cobble and one for gravel, and then set up a vertical crushing wheel setup to double crush cobble all the way down into sand and eventually just collect it in the chest at the bottom. I placed a single drill at the top and slowly powered it with the power from the kelp farm windmill. I ended up speeding up the drill after the initial run because I wanted it to be slow, but definitely not that slow. Yet again, I had to set out on another gathering trip specifically to collect even more deep slate so that I could continue trying to make all the builds look nice. The idea of leaving builds to look gross and simply function nice was becoming increasingly appealing to me, but I soldiered through, and on day 85 I came back with even more deep slate than ever, ready to make sure the area was even more beautiful than before. On days 86 and 87, I used my new collection of deep slate to decorate the area around the sand generator, and mainly was focused on dealing with the entire mess of a cobblestone generator that was currently hanging off the ceiling above it. Apparently, there was a huge pool of water directly behind that, so it was a bit of an infuriating time trying to actually work on improving how it looked. With the sand generator now working flawlessly, I had to make sure all the useless items that were coming from it were tossed out of the way to make room for more sand, so I put another smart chute directly under the chest to dump items into lava and used an item filter to set both flint and clay to have a single chute ditching both of them. Since we were now nearing the end of the 100 days, I was determined to use as many days as needed to find enough diamonds to finish off my full set of diamond tools and diamond gear. I figured it would be pretty sad to finish off this series without having at least full diamond, so I set out on day 89 and dug down to Y-58 to tunnel through Deep Slate, attempting to find any diamonds I could possibly get my hands on. I did not manage to find enough diamonds to finish my armor and tools until day 94, since apparently I was playing hide and seek with diamonds, and let me tell you guys, I was definitely not winning. I even caved and looked up expert Minecraft pro tips on how to find diamonds in 1.18 because of just how bad I was doing on my own. Somebody just cue the sad violin noise. Someone edit it in here right now. After returning home, I used my fancy new dried kelp blocks to smelt down all the ores I found while searching for diamonds. I also crafted my remaining diamond gear and quite proudly put it on with less than 5 days left in this journey. With only a few days left, there wasn't time to take on another large project, so I spent days 96 and 97 cleaning up the builds I had done so far. I spent most of my time on the iron generator cleaning up the entire back of the cobblestone generator portion of it. I turned the extremely bland and lame waterfall directly behind it into a fancy waterfall with a serene pool of water sitting at the bottom. I made sure to add in mossy detail wherever I possibly could because I am all about green energy and saving the environment. After hitting level 33, I enchanted my last 2 tools, getting a pretty decent enchant on my axe and an extremely nice enchant on my sword. While I was definitely happy to get it, I was a little bit sad I didn't enchant it sooner because maybe I wouldn't have been such a scared little weenie if I had a real manly man weapon to be swinging around me this whole time. On day 99, I just wanted to feel good about all the work I had put in over the last 99 days, so I checked on the haul from my iron generator, my kelp farm, and finally my sand generator. I was quite pleased with all I had gotten and made the last trip up to the surface to sit back and watch the sun set on the final day. After returning to the cave, I caught a quick nap and there it was, day 100. I had done it. I not only survived 100 days in Create Mod Minecraft, but I thrived in it. And with that, the challenge is done and over. Let me know in the comments if you think I truly did manage to thrive in my little underground world, and also let me know if you'd like to see either another 100 days video or a 200 days video in this same world.